Frostpunk 2 has had a bit of a shaky reception from its player base. Many fans seem disappointed that it doesn't quite feel as much like a sequel as a game that somebody else made after they read the Frostpunk cliff notes and stuck their head in a freezer for a few minutes. When I first started playing it, I kind of felt the same way, but after being forced into the intimate confines of a city built around a blast furnace, I've definitely warmed up to Frostpunk 2. This journey back into the frozen wasteland is one that wastes no time punching you directly in the balls with the prospect and actualization of failure. I managed to lose in the prologue of all places because I confused this resource of rectangles and boxes with this resource of rectangles and cylinders. But after I came to fully comprehend these icons, I was ready to dive back into my old cozy crater in New London. But instead of the familiar view just high enough to make out the chilly denizens of your favorite deep freeze, you're lifted high above a much more expansive bustling city where dozens of slushy citizens have turned into hundreds and even thousands of frosty freeloaders. While you can still hold various locations of your city under a microscope like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids to see your tiny people wandering the warming pipes of the area, most of your time will be spent orbiting high above laying out the future expansions carved in the endless permafrost. Now, instead of exclusively creating individual buildings and roads that can mean life or death for a handful of people at a time, you'll be mapping out a half-dozen hex grids worth of zoning that will slap together more buildings in a few seconds than your entire city had in the first game. But while you can pop up housing, food, extraction, industrial, and logistic districts to fulfill the much broader needs of your demanding population with ease, you'll replace that lesser challenge with a reimagined approach to the classic pain in the ass of gathering resources. You'll still have the slightly more convoluted ability to kinda grab whatever things you can find on the ground, but now it's not just as simple as scooping up wood and metal to erect this modern steamy city. In order to build, maintain, and run all of your facilities, you'll need to manage an entire supply chain of money generated from your citizens, prefab materials that are always hard to come by, thousands of available workers, and having the land properly cleared by the process of frost breaking. Then everything has to be maintained by an ever-growing demand for materials that also need to be collected for all eternity unless you want shit to start breaking. And on top of all of that, you still need to make sure you get enough coal to keep everyone warm, which you immediately find out you don't have enough to do that, and this leads you to the American dream of striking oil. But one resource in this game is far more complex than all the others by a wide margin: the human beings. People are the core of Frostpunk, and not just because you used to burn them to stay warm or eat them when you ran out of food. Now these people have a much broader spectrum of needs beyond just trying to have enough food and warmth to not die. You also have to have another resource called goods to keep them placated in this depressing existence. And as you build more to keep them happy, you also have to address the disease and squalor created by the industrial buildings needed to give them what they want, creating a beautiful endless cycle that will make you want to burn the whole place down even when you're already plenty warm. But you might not need to burn it down yourself because, as always happens when large numbers of people get together, tribalism is inevitable and factions will form, each coalescing their ideals and corresponding demands. And as many do in a post-apocalyptic world where people die just from being outside, no one can agree on a singular path forward. So now, instead of enacting laws to change the way your population lives at will, you'll need to run them by a whole Congress of differing factions and lobby them for their votes on your issues. But if you don't give them what they ask for or just straight up piss them off, they'll start a riot and tear the city apart, ruining the delicate balance that keeps them and everyone else alive just because you pulled their children out of school and put them in the coal mines. Frostpunk 2, a new twist on the classic sadomasochistic fun of running a city on the foundation of a world-ending disaster. I think what made Frostpunk 2 less appealing to some players, aside from just being different, is the fact that it takes a step up in complexity straight away. The original game was very straightforward in its execution. You needed to address issues directly to survive, and typically there was only one or two ways to do it at most. This sequel presents you with a gauntlet of new issues and gives you numerous ways to resolve them, with each resolution having its own set of potential outcomes. A lack of variety in gameplay was one of the few issues I had with the original game, and now even the campaign can provide unique paths through branching narratives and faction diversity, despite some of the events still being baked into the chapter design. However, that chapter design was one element that wasn't very appealing to me. It's the same design that I didn't like in Ixion because it meant mistakes that you made many hours prior in the campaign could still be affecting your overall playthrough. Frostpunk launched with 3 shorter scenarios that made it reasonable to completely restart if you fucked things up early on. However, even though Frostpunk 2 made the prospect of doing that much more daunting, the one time I did get ousted in later chapters, going to an earlier save and making some hasty decisions let me hold off the disaster and continue to progress through the campaign. The distinction between the first and second game in this series is certainly broader than many other games, but it still ends up feeling natural given the spirit of the franchise. The focus shifted from the challenge of micromanaging survival to the challenge of macromanaging people that all have a different view on how to survive and thrive. It even draws some elements from modern civilization games as you ultimately come to manage multiple cities at once and use a similar district expansion mechanic to improve them. And the even loftier view of your icy region returns with a significantly more engaging process of exploration, resource gathering, and route connection, adding depth unlike anything in the original Frostpunk. It may have taken me a little while to break through to the quality and fun of Frostpunk 2, but as I battered my way into the campaign ending, I could only think about the future promised DLCs allowing me to get back into it. I want to see more of these factions, their variety presented in different maps, and the challenges delivered by the unique events happening within them. And since I'm somehow still not tired of everyone calling me Stuart, Frostpunk 2 is getting the abbreviated score of good. And if you've been stuck out on the frozen waste too long, you might want to like this video and cozy up with some more hot takes, warm satire, and tepid commentary in these other abbreviated reviews.